And welcome to the Pewtercast. This is episode 6, Training Camp Mania. And guys, guess what? Football is back. Oh man, I am so excited. I've been so excited to get to do this episode. I've been really excited to do all the episodes we've done so far this year because it's been so much fun. We've gotten to talk about some different issues. We've been talking about culture and what it means to change that. We've been talking about what are the things that we need to see from our coaches, what are the things we need to see from our players, and that's all great stuff to cover during the off season. Like, it's stuff that sets up your regular season. But now, guys, football's back, and I know it's just training camp. We've not quite hit games yet. We've not even hit preseason games yet. But you know what? I was watching a video earlier today of Doug Martin taking off, breaking a bunch of tackles, and running downfield during training camp. And let me tell you what, that's football, and that counts. So guys, I'm so excited. I hope you guys are excited. I hope you guys have been watching the videos that have been coming out. I hope you've been reading all the reports. I hope you've been checking out the What the Buck podcast. They've been doing some things, and go check out their Facebook page because Derek over there, he's live streaming. He's live streaming what he's eating afterwards over at Hooters and different places. So it's just a blast, guys. It is so fun to be back. Oh man, I am so excited. So you know what? I am more excited right now than Jesse Spano on the night before a big test. You know what I'm saying? How many people of you guys remember that episode? Oh my gosh. I am more excited than Bill Clinton in a room full of balloons. I got it. Did you see Bill over at the DNC, man? Those balloons popped out, and he was kicking them like he was my 4-year-old son. More excited. I'm more excited than Thor at a 2-for-1 hammer sale. Come on, son. Oh, I am more excited than a cannibal having a friend over for dinner. I'll let that one sit there just for a minute. Oh, I am more excited than Buddy the Elf. Yeah, that's it. I'm more excited than Buddy the Elf. Oh, yes. I gotta tell you what. Here, I got one more. I am more excited than a podcast host getting to read new iTunes reviews. Woo! So, hey, guys, let's talk about those. We got some new iTunes reviews. 2 new reviews that have come in that I want to read. Ballpark 68 says, awesome cast. Obviously a true fan from the Orange days. He is honest and covers everything I want in a podcast about my Bucks. Keep keeping on. Well, thank you, Ballpark 68. I got to tell you, I am not a fan from the Orange days. I am a fan from the Pewter days, those days right after the Orange days. I came in right about 1998 is when I actually moved to Tampa. I moved from the town where I grew up in. We just didn't have a football team. So I had no one I was loyal to, and I came in right at the time when the Bucks were on the upswing. They weren't quite up there yet, but they were getting there. And man, I got addicted, and I've been a Bucks fan. It's almost 20 years now. That's crazy to me. It has been almost 20 years since being a Bucks fan. 18, I think, is probably the official number, but hey, who's counting for real? All right, so there's that review. Let's read one more. This one is from Sticky Stash _BBQ. I got to tell you, when I first read that, I didn't see the underscore or the BBQ, so I just went Sticky Stash. And I went, well, wonder what his stash is sticky from. But anyway, Sticky Stash _BBQ says, a must listen for Bucks fans. A lot of TV Buccaneers podcasts have come and gone, but this podcast is a must listen for Bucks fans. I love the fan approach of the podcast. Brent talks Bucks football on our level because he's a huge fan himself. The music is really good, and his take on changing the Buccaneers football culture is right on. Go Bucks. Well, thank you so much, Sticky Stash _BBQ. I wouldn't mind getting some BBQ because I got to tell you, I am a big fan. If you're watching the live stream, hey, I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. If you're watching the live stream, you will see I am not a small fella. Me and Mr. Fournier over there at What the Buck, we could give each other a run for our money. But I am a big Buccaneers fan. I love getting to do this. I love doing this from the perspective of a fan. I think it gives us a unique voice, a unique platform in some of the other podcasts that are out there. Because Well, there is, as far as I know, there is no other one that is just purely from a fan's perspective. You know, some of the other ones do different things in different ways. But hey, thanks for shouting out about the music being really good. Quick shout out to the last particular episode where we featured music from a band called Need to Breathe. They had a brand new album come out called Hard Love. They're absolutely my favorite band playing right now. And if you didn't see it, we have bonus content. Episode 3 is up right now. You can go download that. Probably actually as you're downloading this particular episode. And we're my buddy Mike Morgan from college. He came in and we just kind of reviewed the album. We went track by track, went through it. It's a fantastic album. You should definitely make sure you go get it. And if you want a little bit of non-Bucks content from a couple of Bucks fans where we're talking about it, go take a listen. We do a little listening party on that. So yeah, go for it. And yeah, really trying to change the culture. So, well, hey, thanks to you guys for sending those in. Guys, that puts our official iTunes reviews numbers up to 10. So keep on sending in those reviews. We are 15 away from hitting the magic number that will spark an instant take podcast each week. And in case you're new to the show, here's what I've said about that. That if we hit 25 iTunes reviews by the start of the preseason, and you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and extend that a little bit. 25 iTunes reviews by the start of the season. So we'll go all the way through the preseason with this. If we hit 25, I'm going to add an instant take show, meaning as soon as the game's over, as soon as I can get to the recording equipment, I'll do a short 15, 20 minute deal of just kind of my initial impressions of the game. And we'll put that out there for you to listen to, which will kind of tide you over until a little bit later on in the week, when we're going to be able to get the main show, the show you're listening to right now, that'll come out later on that week. So you can do that by going over to iTunes, because that's where we're collecting all the reviews. So go over to iTunes, subscribe on iTunes if you can. And hey, listen, if you are listening to this on Podcast Addict or Stitcher or Overcast or Jabbercast, Google Play Music, or even YouTube, you guys jump on over to iTunes, leave me a review, and then just go back to listening to the podcast however you want. You go listen to the Pewtercast on whatever platform. I love them all. It's very fun to kind of watch the numbers and see how the different platforms are competing with each other. And hey, here's some news coming soon. This podcast right here, the Pewtercast, is going to be on iHeartRadio. That's fun. How about that, man? I like that. So yeah, you can do that. And hey, listen, shoot me an email. You can guys talk to me. I'll go ahead and we'll put this out there. Shoot me an email. Give me some feedback. You can send that over to thepewtercast@gmail.com, or you can hit me up on Facebook at facebook.com/thepewtercast, or you can check me out on Twitter at @thepewtercast. Please follow, please interact with me, guys. And I'll tell you, every bit of communication we get, I really try to respond to, and I try to do it pretty quick. So I love interacting with you guys, the fans of the show. And, you can send questions in. I'll try to answer them as best I can. And I'm not going to BS you. If I don't know the answer, I'm not going to answer it. Or at least I'll tell you I don't know what the answer is. But, I'll certainly give you my take. So, all right, guys. Well, hey, let's take a look at this. This is episode 6. We're right in the middle of training camp. And here's what this show is going to be about. Coming up here, we're going to be talking about what I'm looking for in training camp. Now, this is getting back to just some football stuff. This is not so much of the culture stuff and all that, though that'll certainly be sprinkled in there. This is, what am I physically looking for? What are the situations around the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they're in training camp? What are the things I'm looking for as I'm watching the videos from training camp, as I'm reading the articles that are coming out on the media sites, as the coaches are talking, the players are talking? What are those things that I've got my eye on during these next couple of weeks here through training camp, and honestly probably will extend through most of the preseason games and even into the season somewhat, though by the time we get to the season, some of these will be answered. So that's going to be our main topic for today. Our top 5 for today, this one's actually very fun. We're going to be talking about the top 5 games to watch this season. Ooh, and hey, make sure you make sure you stay through that side, because I want to hear your all's thoughts on if you think that what you think the most important games are to watch this season, if you only had to pick a handful. And then we're going to close out the show. We've got a brand new segment yet again. I love collecting new segments, and here in the early days of the podcast, it's just a lot of new ones. But this one's going to be called Say What? And in this segment, what we're going to do is we're going to review some of the press conferences, some of the lines that the players and coaches have been saying. We're going to pick out those lines, and we'll kind of talk about those and dissect those. So, guys, that's what today's show is going to be about. You make sure you stay tuned, and we'll be right back with the Pewtercast. Welcome back to the Pewtercast, guys. This is Brent Allen, your host. And in today's main segment, we're going to be spending some time talking about what am I looking for coming out of training camp. Now, you guys should know, in doing a football podcast, it is nearly impossible. It is grueling to not be able to put out a podcast just as soon as training camp opens. I mean, because training camp is a big, hairy deal, especially since, you know, we've just come off this, 3-4 week period where we've had nothing with football. Like OTAs got done, and the guys, I don't even think they were allowed to be around the building. Unless they were, like, I think doing some of their own camps or something like that, but they couldn't have any interaction. I think that's all part of the CBA with the Players Association. But I mean, it's just, we've been in this long, dark night. And now football's back, and we're seeing the guys tomorrow. As of recording this, actually later today, on Sunday, we're actually going to be seeing the guys in pads. So that should be awesome. I can't wait to see the videos from that. But I got to tell you, I have a problem, and I've had a problem these last couple days with getting a podcast episode out. And my problem is this: I don't live in Tampa. And I don't have the ability right now where I am with things that are going on in my life to drive down and watch training camp. So the only thing that I have to go on is what the other media outlets are putting out there, what Pewter Report's putting out, and Pewter Plank, and just, you know, all those guys. And so what am I going to do? What can I add to that conversation? Like, that's been the question on my mind these last couple of days. And you know, I could just rehash what those guys are saying, but why? They already said it, and they said it better than me, you know? And honestly, you should go click on their links and go read their stuff and let them get the clicks through so they can, you know, get paid, because they get paid for doing this. But this is a fan podcast. That's what I started thinking about. You know, this is a fan podcast. How are the fans taking in this information? You know, I don't want to come out and pretend to be a media guy. That's never been my approach to this. So I decided to approach this the same way that most fans are, which is by watching and reading what these guys are saying. And I've got some things that from the offseason I'm kind of curious about. I've got some things from OTAs that kind of plucked up, you know, the hairs in the back of my head, and I've kind of got my eyes on these. And so that's what we're going to be talking about through this. And actually, I've got 10 of them. I didn't plan on it being 10, but that's just how it came out. So what am I looking for in training camp? Well, guys, the very first thing that I'm looking for in training camp, I'm watching Jameis. I'm looking at Jameis. I just want to see clips of him and see what he's doing. I want to see how he's progressing. I want to see him leading. I want to see his press conferences and see how he's tackling these questions and see what he's thinking. I want to watch him interacting with his other players outside of the whistles. I want to see what he's doing, because everybody keeps talking about it. Everybody that you hear over at One Buck Plays talks about how Jameis just has this personality and everybody's just gravitating towards him. And I want to see that. I want to see that actually happening. I want to see him taking risks in practice. One of the reports that keep coming out about Jameis is it's hard to judge him during these camps and during these practices, because this is a time when he takes chances. And so he's going to throw interceptions. He's going to make bad decisions. He's going to throw those bad balls, because that's him kind of testing out and feeling what he can do. He's not trying to be the best in practice. He's actually trying to practice, which is what practice is for. You know, and I think the big thing that I really want to see, you know, we all have heard by now that Jameis has trimmed down. Like, he's lost about 20 pounds, which for me is like water weight. I can go up and down 20 pounds like in 2 or 3 days, you know, back and forth, just depending on how humid the weather is out there. But he lost 20 pounds. That's a big deal. I want to see if it's helped him. Because I don't know. I can't tell. I mean, he looks great, but I don't know. I want to see how it's really helped him. So, Jameis, that's the first thing that I'm looking for from Jameis. All right, the number 2 thing that I'm looking for is I'm looking at the tight end situation. Well, guys, look, we currently have 9 tight ends on the roster, and we're going to keep maybe 4, possibly 5 if you count somebody who might do some time as a tight end and somebody who might do some time as a fullback. And I think we know who I'm talking about there, which is Mr. Danny Vitale. And so who are the people we're going to keep? I mean, there's Luke Starker, Cam Brate, ASJ, and then you got Dan Vitale, who could be that 4th one. You've got a couple other guys that get mixed in there. So how are we doing there? Like, who are we going to keep? Are we actually going to keep that many? Or are we going to trim that down? So I'm kind of looking to see, like, that's a lot of tight ends, it seems like, going into camp. Could any of them unseat the guys that have spots that had a spot last year on the roster that are back? One of the reports we keep hearing is that Cameron Brate keeps stepping up, and he really could take like the number 1 tight end spot. And but I want to see it. That's one of the things I'm looking for as I'm watching these videos is I want to see Cam Brate. I want to see what he's doing as a tight end. Is he as good as we keep hearing about? Another big thing about the tight end situation that I'm really curious, and I think all Bucs fans really should be, is ASJ. I mean, hey, we had that thing that happened this summer where he got kicked out of practice and then he started running his mouth, but he got kicked out of practice, coach said, because he didn't know what the hell he was doing. That's coach's words, not mine. But he didn't know what he was doing. So what's going on with ASJ? Does he know what he's doing? Does he seem like he's really in this? Does he seem like he should be worthy of that draft pick that we spent on him a few years ago? Does he seem like he's going to be a good tight end for us? Is he someone we're going to want to keep? So I don't know. I'm really curious to find out. Is he somebody we want around? So the tight end situation, but man, we've got a lot of tight ends on the roster for very, 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 for about half the spots, a little bit less than half the spots. So that's one thing I'm looking for. Staying on that side of the ball, the offensive side of the ball, I'm looking at our offensive line situation as well. That's another situation where we've got a few extra guys than what we're actually going to wind up keeping. But I think the big thing that I'm looking for is who's going to replace Logan Mankin's leadership. Logan was unquestionably the leader. He was actually one of the team captains last year. And so who replaces him? We'll talk about this a little bit later in another segment, but Joe Hawley said that they all are, which is not a good thing. He said, "Oh, well, we're all leading, kind of in our own way by showing up and just doing what we got to do." No. We actually need a vocal leader there on the offensive line. Our offensive line did great last year because we had somebody who could really rally those guys. So you need to have a leader. And as it turns out, it doesn't have to be an offensive line guy, but it's better if it is. So that's one of the things I'm really looking for here in the offensive line. But there's also a couple of positional matchups on the offensive line. I think we've all heard about Joe Hawley versus Evan Smith battling out for center. We've also heard about Ali Marpet taking some snaps in at center, and we know that Coach Warhop, offensive line coach, loves cross-training all of his guys to be in the different positions and to know what they're doing. And so who else is going to get a turn there at center? But we know that the big competition is between Joe Hawley and Evan Smith. And I am very much well on record of saying that I don't understand why that competition is happening unless Evan Smith has just really come out here over the offseason and done some amazing work, or Joe Hawley has really, really dropped off. I'm not sure. But I guess if I had to guess, it would just be, if I had to guess, that's awesome podcast talk right there. But if I had to guess, I would think that Coach Cutter has probably set this up as a competition to help spur that on. Like maybe he really in the back of his mind thinks it's going to be Joe Hawley, but he's not telling people that because he wants them to work at it. And, competition breeds better betterness. It breeds, that's a good word right there, betterness. Competition breeds excellence, right? So maybe that's really what's going on. I'm not really sure, but I just don't understand why that's a position battle. I'd be okay to see Evan Smith not on our roster if we needed to trim someone. Although he is a fantastic person to have when, not if, but when an offensive lineman gets hurt. So yeah, he's he certainly can step in. We're paying him way too much to be a backup offensive lineman though, and we've got some pretty good other offensive linemen that are just waiting. One of those guys is Kevin Pamphile. Now, this is the matchup that I see that I'm actually way more interested in even than I am in the Joe Hawley versus Evan Smith, and that's Kevin Pamphile versus J.R. Sweezy. There have been reports, and I think we all knew this, that when Logan Mankins retired, if they didn't get somebody else to come in, it was really going to be Kevin Pamphile's spot. He was going to be the guy to step in, and Kevin Pamphile had filled in at guard a few times last year, did fantastic. He did great. I'm not really sure why they went out and got somebody else, because I think it's his time to step up. I think he's certainly ready to do that. So, and we know that J.R. Sweezy is out right now with a back injury. He's on the PUP list, and so that's actually a battle that I'm looking forward to see if Kevin Pamphile can actually beat out this guy that they brought in, because I think Kevin Pamphile might be ready for that spot. I've got one more thing on the offensive line that I'm looking for, and that is Caleb Benenoch. I want to see what he's got. You know, he had to sit out OTAs, and there wasn't much video coming out of OTAs, so I wouldn't have seen it anyway. But we spent a draft pick on an offensive lineman. That one, if you go back to episode 1 where we talked about that, I said that one made me scratch my head because I felt like we were pretty good. I think this is probably a pick more for the future than it is for this year. But I want to see what the man has. You know, I want to see what he has. And Coach Cutter actually had some interesting words to say about him today. We'll get back to that one in a later segment. So yeah, I'm looking at that, the offensive line. Another one that I'm looking for over on the offensive side of the ball is Doug Martin. I'm really watching Doug Martin. And I'll tell you specifically why. You know, Doug came in last year and he had a fantastic camp. He came in ready. He was hungry. He had a great year. And it is absolutely normal to be expected even that after having a big, shiny year for anyone or any team, that the next year they have a bit of a drop off, you know, because you can't always have a stellar year. Otherwise you don't have a year that seems special. You know, last year was a special year for Doug Martin. Now I hope Doug Martin can come back and actually get that title this year of the number 1 rushing guy in the NFL. But that depends on us handing him the ball and letting him run with it. Do you guys remember those games last year where the first 6 plays we ran on offense was all just to Doug Martin, just 6 times, go Doug Martin, Doug. And he got some great yardage. So that's the question I have about Doug Martin is what are we going to see from him this year? Is it going to be really kind of an expected drop off, or is he just going to come back, you know, picking right up where he left off? You know, which Doug Martin are we going to see? You know, and that's assuming that he doesn't get injured, and that's assuming that he's still going to have a great offensive line that's in front of him. And you know, people talk about that, like he had the great rookie year, and then he had 2 years where he was kind of, and then he had last year, which was fantastic. But if you look at those 2 years in the middle, the man was injured. He was not playing behind a good offensive line that was opening up holes for him. So yeah, will it be like last year, or will injury shorten his years? That's what we're actually looking for. That's what I'm looking for from Doug, is to see who is it we're going to see from him. You know, if you guys remember, I referenced this just a minute ago. Last year in training camp, people were saying that there was this huge difference in him. Are we going to hear those things about Doug Martin? Like, maybe they're not saying there's a big difference in Doug Martin this year, but they're going to say he's carried that through. That's still there, you know. He's doing the same thing in training camp as he did last year. He's just doing more of it. Like that's kind of what we're looking for. Trying to see. So, all right, moving on. Number 5. Let's recap it real quick. Was looking at Jameis. I'm looking at the tight end situation, the offensive line situation, looking at Doug Martin. The 5th thing that I'm watching for here in training camp is the DTs. That's the defensive tackles. I'm watching those guys. Guys, this is a fairly thin position we have. I'm not gonna front. We don't have a lot of depth at this particular position, and so I'm watching. I'm watching to see how the guys that we have in this spot really perform. We've got Gerald right there. We've got Will Goldson. He's been doing some stuff in there. We've got Akeem Spence. I feel like, am I missing one? Is Clinton a DT? I think he's an end. I don't know. But anyway, we don't have that many people that have been there. So that's one of the things that I'm just watching. I want to see how those guys are performing. I'll say this. I don't expect Tampa Bay to add a new defensive tackle or anyone really of significance. They'll make some roster moves here through camp, but I don't expect them to make any major roster moves or any big announcements until the teams have to pare down everything to the 53 and there's some new people that hit the waiver wire that aren't there right now. It's that thing they call the second draft. I think that's where we're probably going to add some more depth to this position is once we get there. And I think that's probably what Jason Light is waiting on before really making any big moves with that particular deal. So anyway, that's one of the positions I'm watching are the defensive tackles. I'll tell you a specific person that I'm watching for over on the defense is Robert Ayers. Robert Ayers has been making a lot of noise this offseason. This is my number 6 pick, by the way, guys. Robert Ayers has been making a lot of noise this offseason with how he's kind of stepping up, how he's being this leader. And I want to see what he has. I've not actually been able to watch him a ton. I've not been able to watch a lot of film on him. I wasn't overly familiar with him until we signed him. So, I don't know. I'm interested to see about this Robert Ayers guy that we keep hearing about. So, number 7, the number 7 thing that I'm looking for here in training camp is I am looking at the cornerbacks, which I think everybody should, man. Brent Grimes has been having a hell of a couple of days, man. He had this one, there's this great video where this man took like a 6-foot jump over, I think it was Dante Dye, I think is who I saw it was. It might not have been him. It might have been somebody else, but he just jumped over this guy and just snatched a ball out the air. So so I'm looking at Brent Grimes, is he worth, was he worth the money that we paid him? We brought him in to really shore up this, this cornerback went from being one of our most question mark positions to really one of the positions we have the most depth at. So, I'm also certainly watching Hargraves, who, he was our first round draft pick this year, and he may not actually play that much this season, or they may move him around to some different positions. But I'm real interested to see how he's coming in, especially where he's the hometown boy. I think that could make a big difference. And then certainly, Banks and Werner from the last couple of years, especially after last year where those two guys both really had down years in a down system. I don't know. Like I'm interested to see, do those two guys really, percolate back up to the top? Alteron Werner's he's a former Pro Bowler. He should be doing fantastic. He should be absolutely doing great. So I'm really interested to see. I'm interested to see who emerges out of that group. That's one of the things. So. The number 8 thing that I am looking at here during training camp is actually what I think is our thinnest position, and that's at the safety. That's the safety position. I got to tell you, now this is just me, but I have zero confidence in anybody who's playing safety right now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's not to say that they won't have any confidence for me. It's just I need them to prove it to me. And I'm including in that Bradley McDougald and Chris Conti and the guys that are coming back. Like I have zero confidence in you, and it might not be their fault. It really might be just because of the coaching situation they came out of last year with the mess that was the defensive backs room with the weird coaching situation that they had, and I don't know. I just don't know what to think of our safeties. We drafted Ryan Smith this year, and I want to see how he's doing. He was a guy that Jason Light, they drafted him as, was he a cornerback? I think it was. I think they drafted him as a cornerback, but Jason Light in his press conference immediately following that said, we're probably going to use him at safety. So now I haven't heard much about Ryan Smith since the draft, really. I did hear that Cutter say that he was looking at him for being a return specialist, which that could be cool. That's an interesting thing, so I don't know. I'm interested to see how this draft pick is doing. I've just not heard a ton. Speaking of a return specialist, the number 9 thing that I'm looking for here over the course of OTAs, which they haven't done a ton with so far, just in the first 3 days, is the return game. What are we doing with the return game? Which here I'm going to give my little tip of the hat to old Bobby Rainey. Man, I was rooting for Bobby. Oh, you guys can go back. You can listen to, what was it? It was episode number 2, I think it was. Maybe 4. I think it was episode 4 where we did our top 5 undrafted free agents, and Bobby Rainey was one of mine. I liked him. Bobby's just a guy I wanted to give a hug to. But I could not forgive the number of muffed, catches that he had last year, and he needed to be gone. I hate that. Gosh, I hate that. But what are we gonna do? I mean, this is such a question mark position. Now, Cutter did he named Kenny Bell, Ryan Smith, and Charles Sims as potentials for return specialist. So that seems like a very interesting group that could prove to be could have some really good yield out of that. Charles Sims surprises me a little bit for being in that group, just because we utilize him so much. I mean, I'm sure he'd be good at it, but we utilize him so much. I don't want to necessarily risk injury to him. So Kenny Bell, I think, could be interested. Kenny Bell, I think, is going to come up against a very full wide receivers room. And I don't know that Kenny Bell makes the roster this year unless he's doing something like this return specialist spot. I just don't know. I don't know. So that could be an interesting deal for Kenny Bell. They say he's quick. He's real super quick. So him, Ryan Smith, Chuck Sims. I'm a little leery of using Charles Sims. I want to save him for his running back duties and not risk him getting hurt. So that's what I'm looking at. And then the number 10 thing. This is the last thing I'm looking for in training camp of the things that have my eyes peeled. It's Roberto Aguayo's first missed kick. Now, I know today he missed a kick at 45 yards. He made 2, he missed 1, made a kick. But I'm talking mostly really about when he misses a kick in the game. And I'm looking to see him. Okay, let me explain that. I'm looking for Roberto Aguayo's kicks. I want to see how he's kicking because he has a looming first missed kick in a game coming up. He is going to eventually miss. I don't mean to curse the boy. It's just going to happen. Will it happen this year? I don't know. Will it happen next year? I don't know. There will come a time when Roberto Aguayo will eventually miss a kick. And when that happens, you've got to brace yourself for the I told you so's and the whatnot. The people that still keep harping on the idea that he was drafted in the second round, really is kind of the third round, but yeah, okay. Drafted in the second round, and we traded away a perfectly good draft pick for the 4th round to go up and get him. And people just have a whole lot of hard times with him. But I've said it once, and I'm going to say it again. Kickers put points on the board. So many games last year were decided on a kick. The momentum of a game shifted on a kick. Go back and listen to episode 1, and I dive into that a lot. I'm not going to rehash it all the way here, but kickers put points on the board, and there's going to be great, and there was really good defensive tackles and safeties and other skill positions that were still available when Roberto Aguayo was there, but those are not positions that always put points on a board. They just don't. So, Roberto Aguayo, his position puts points on the board. And so I want to see him kick. I want to see him kick. He missed one today, but you know what? In training camp, it doesn't count. The ones that really count is when we're in the game. Yeah, our kicking position cost us last year. It really did. Kyle Brenza, oh my gosh. Another guy I was rooting for. Kyle Brenza, he was cute. A guy, it's Kyle. He still had a baby face. I'm not really sure if he shaved yet ever. And then we got Connor Barth back in, which I like Connor Barth. I really enjoyed watching him, but yeah, gosh, the missed kicks last year, man, they hurt us. They killed us. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for coming out of training camp this year. I'm looking for Jameis. I'm looking for our tight end situation. I'm looking for the offensive line situation. I'm looking at Doug Martin. I'm watching the defensive tackles. I'm watching Robert Ayers specifically. I'm watching the cornerbacks and seeing who emerges from there. I'm really curious about our safeties because that's our weakest spot. I'm really interested to see what comes out of the return game, and I want to see Roberto Aguayo kick. I'm not a Seminoles fan. Sorry guys, I'm more of an SEC guy personally. But I've never really watched Roberto Aguayo. I tell you what, I do love this. I love the fact that we've got Roberto and we've got Jameis, both from Florida State, and there's one more guy. I forget who it was. We're getting some guys that are from Florida, which that should make Sean King really, really happy. Getting some good old Florida football players, and some of these guys that just know each other. So, notably off of this list, and you guys may note it, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I'm not worried about Mike Evans. I'm not that worried about him. I don't think, he and Jameis have been working a whole lot in this offseason of developing their chemistry. I don't think he's going to have some of the problems he's going to have last year. And with him, I mostly just kind of want to wait and see what happens when the games come. But I don't know. I'm not worried about him that much this year. These other things are ones that I'm definitely more concerned about. So, well, guys, here's where I'm going to turn it back on you. What about you? What are you, my fellow fans, what are you keeping an eye on during training camp? Did I hit the ones that you're looking at, or do you have ones that I did not mention? Well, you can let me know by shooting me an email over at thepewtercast@gmail.com, or you can leave me a comment on the post for this podcast, or you can go over to Twitter or Facebook at thepewtercast on both of them, or always leave an iTunes review. We said that again. So let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I always do my best to get back to you. I do try to respond to every piece of email. And hey, listen, if your email is really good or at least mildly amusing, I may actually read it here on air. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, coming up next, we have the top 5 games to watch this season. I can't wait to jump into those. Stay tuned.
I'll take it in, but don't look down. 'Cause I'm on top of the world. I'm on top of the world. Waiting on this for a while now. Paying my dues to the dirt. I've been waiting to smile. Been holding it in for a while. Take you with me if I can. Been dreaming of this since a child. I'm on top of the world. I've tried to cut these corners.
Hey, Pewtercast fans, Brent Allen, your host here. I've got a quick announcement that I'd love to make that I'm really excited. Not quite as excited about training camp, but I am very excited to let you guys know. We are going to be having our very first inaugural annual fantasy football league. We're going to do our own. So, hey, listen, if you guys want to be a part of it, this is going to be a Pewtercast fans of fantasy football league. And if you want to be a part of it, send me an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com and I'll send you an invite. Anyone who sends me an email, I'm going to send you an invite. I want this league to get as big as you can. Here's the deal. It's going to be $10. Okay, that's going to be the entry fee to get in. And the winner of the whole thing is going to get half of the pot. And the other half is going to go to charity. Now, I haven't quite decided which charity. This was really just kind of an idea I came up with earlier today. Yeah, go ahead and send me that email to thepewtercast@gmail.com. Go ahead and put fantasy football in the subject line so I know that that's what you're looking at. And we'll get to play and interact with each other over the course of this season.
Take you with me if I can. Been dreaming of this since a child. And I know it's hard when you're falling down, and it's a long way up, and you make the ground. But get up now, get up now.
And welcome back to the Pewtercast. Guys, it's time for our top 5 segment of the episode. And today we're going to be talking about the top 5 games on our schedule this season that you want to make sure you watch. These are the games that, okay, let's say this. As a Bucks fan, every game is important. You should be watching every single game. But hey, listen, I understand life gets in the way. Sometimes work, sometimes family, sometimes you just fall asleep. I don't know, whatever other obligations you have. Sometimes you can't catch a Bucks game. But today I'm going to give you what I think kind of before the season even begins. I think these are going to be the most important games of the season. And you want to make it a point to try to catch these 5 games. All right, and I had a little bit of criteria that I used as I was trying to pick this out. And one, it has to be an important game to the season as a whole. All right. Now, listen, as I said, all games are important, but these particular games have a special meaning that really, I think, impact other games. They impact the rest of the season. So these are potentially defining games, like season defining games, turning point games for the season, where those can happen. So now the other thing too, and I'm just going to qualify this as I go through, usually I kind of rank them like most important to least important. Today, I'm just actually going through the season in order, so we'll start in the earliest part of the season and we'll just go. So there's no ranking as much as I just think these are the games that we want to watch. Okay. You want to make sure you get to these games, and I'll leave it to you to rank them. So the first game that I think that we should all watch this year is the September 11th game where the Bucks are at the Falcons. And hey, I'm actually going to be at that game. It's the first game of the season and I get to go. Woo, 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 woo. But no, that's why we need to watch it. It's the season opener. It's the very first game. This is the game that can set the tone for the entire season. Okay, this is the game that we need to show our Bucks that we are behind them as fans. Now, listen, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, things will not be perfect in this game, but it will be the first real test of our season. And this is a game that we just all need to be watching. Okay, we got to get amped up for it. So if for some reason you can't watch this, you better make sure that you get it on a DVR. A friend has it on a DVR. You do whatever you can to make sure that you watch this game. Bucks at the Falcons. And if for some reason you're not in a place where you can watch this game, head down to local B-dubs or someplace like that and make them put the game on for you. All right. Someplace that has an NFL ticket, or get an NFL ticket yourself. That's what I got. So I think that is our first most important game. Not the most, it's just a first important game of the year that we have. My number 2 game that I think we need to be watching is actually just a couple weeks after that. It's September 25th. It's when the Rams come to Raymond James Stadium to face our beloved Bucks. And I'll tell you why this one's super important. It's our home opener. Okay, so you've got the season opener, and here we have our home opener. This is our first home game of the season. And listen, guys, I did a little bit of research before the show. We have to win more games at home. Oh my gosh, I am sick and tired of losing, especially losing at home. That's just humiliating. Okay, here, listen, you ready? Last year we went 3-5 at home. Okay, 3-5. That was a losing season at home. All right. The year before that, 0-8. Thank you, Lovie Smith. 0-8. We didn't win a single home game all year last year. The year before that, we went 3-5. That was Shiano's last year. Actually, in Shiano's first year, we also went 3-5 at home. All right, you have to go all the way back to the 2010 season where before we get to just 4-4, where we just broke even at home. And you've got to go all the way back to the 2008 season before we had a winning home record. And that particular year, by the way, it was 6-2. And that was the year John Gruden got fired because we had that nice little 4-game losing streak right at the end of the season. We've got to be able to win at home. You've got to protect your own house. And this is true in any sport. You've got to protect your own house. You can't let people come in and beat you when you're at home. You can't do that at all. And this is going to be a great test for the Bucks to see if they can do it. Winning starts at home. A culture of winning starts at home. If you can't win at home, what's wrong with you? Okay? Like that's home field advantage. You've got the fans in your back pocket. You should be able to win at home. And hey, by the way, Bucks fans, that's where it's on us to make sure we're showing up at Raymond James. For anyone who is able to make it to a game there live, go to Raymond James. Don't stay home and watch it on TV. Go to the game. Support the team, okay? Even if you're going to be way up, let's fill out the place as much and as often as we can, okay? Don't put yourself in financial, don't be stupid about it, but go to the game, okay? I'm really trying to figure out how I can make it down to Tampa this year when that could even possibly work, and see if I can go to a game just because I want to support the team. Hey, listen, when I'm in Atlanta, when I go to Carolina for the game later this year, I'm sitting behind the Bucks bench. Like I get my tickets. And it's costly and it takes some finagling, but fortunately we can make that happen. And it's just a priority to me. I want the Bucks to see Bucks fans sitting right behind them. So that's my own thing. But anyway, Home opener, September 25th. All right, the number 3 game. This is the next game that I think is super important, guys. We all have to make sure we're watching it, and I think I'm going to be at this game too. I really do. Oh, I'm so excited. But this is the October 10th game where the Bucks come up to Carolina and they are facing the Panthers. Now, this game is important for a couple of reasons. One, it's a Monday night game, and the Bucks are going to have to handle the national spotlight. And this is the first chance, I think, in the season where they're really, it's going to be that relevant word really comes back into play. Like, because I tell you what everybody's expecting. Okay. This is what ESPN's expecting. This is what most of the fans, this is what 31 other teams out there are expecting, is that Tampa Bay is going to go to Carolina and get trounced by Carolina on a national scale, on Monday night, on the biggest game of the whole week. That's what people are expecting. And damn it, I hope we prove them wrong. Oh, man. Now, listen. Scott Reynolds over at pewterreport.com had a big thing where it's time to go panther hunting. And he go over there and check it out. He talked about kind of all the stats, and he talked about how the Bucks have fared against the Panthers since they came into the same conference or division, I suppose. And go read that one. Go read that one. It's in his latest SR Fab 5. It's a fantastic read. But guys, we've got to beat these guys. Okay, and that's the second reason. So one, it's a Monday night game. All right, it's really important that we show up and we play and we compete in a Monday night game and even win. But more than that, bigger than that, this is against the man. All right, you guys know the old saying: to be the man, you got to beat the man. Right? To be the man, you got to beat the man. And let me tell you what, in the NFC South, the man has been the Panthers for the last 3 years. The Panthers, like it or not, are who we are trying to become in our division. All right? You've actually probably heard people say that. We're trying to, I don't care what you think of the Panthers. Listen, they've been a good team. They have turned into a really, really, really good team. And so they're the ones we have to beat. All right? That's why this game is so important. Yes, it's a Monday night game. Yes, it's on a national scale, and you don't want to lose on a national scale and get you definitely don't want to get embarrassed. You don't want to get blown out. You want to compete, but you really would much rather win. But this is against our division rival, the Carolina Panthers, and these guys have been the top dog in our division, and so that's why this game is super important. All right. The number 4 game I think that you want to make sure you tune in and watch, make this particular game a priority, is November 27th. This is when the Seahawks come to town to face the Buccaneers. And I'll tell you why I think this one's important. I've heard several people predicting that this game could be our biggest upset game of the year. If Tampa Bay goes and wins against the Seahawks, which is also a very good team, that this could be like the most potential upset out of the entire league is what I've heard from some people. And man, I'd love that. I'd love to upset the Seahawks, because again, people are thinking the same thing about the Seahawks that they're thinking about the Panthers, that they're just going to come into town and they're going to beat the Bucs silly. That's because the Seahawks have been a great team. To be the man, you got to beat the man, and the Seahawks are just that good. And I'll tell you what, I can make a little confession. I like watching the Seahawks. I've liked watching them for these last couple of years. Now, I am not a fan of the Seahawks. I do not buy their jerseys. I don't follow them now that hard. I just don't. But I do enjoy watching their games. I really, really enjoy watching the games. And I got to tell you, if we upset them, it would be huge. Donald Trump would watch that game and go, "That's huge. I know football games, and that's a huge game. Huge." If we beat them, okay, if we upset the Seahawks in that game, that is going to be the game where all of a sudden everybody turns their attention to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and go, "Hey, what's going on over there?" Because it's deep in the season, right? Like November 27th, we're looking at like our 11th, 12th game. No, quite not. Maybe our 10th game of the season at this point. And so we're deep into the season. And if we go in and we beat the Seahawks, and then people all of a sudden turn around and they look and they go, "Hey, going into the Seahawks game, the Bucks are 6-3. Or if we're doing well, like, hey, maybe we should start paying attention to the Bucks, because this is starting to get close to December football. We all talk about how you got to play meaningful football in December, right? And I think until here, no matter what we do, we could go almost undefeated, and we're gonna fly under the radar. People aren't gonna pay attention to us. If we beat the Seahawks on November 27th, people will start paying attention to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I really do. All right, and I got one more game that I think it's just a game you should make it a point to watch this particular game. And this is December 11th. This is the Saints at the Buccaneers. Saints at the Buccaneers. And here's why this one's important to me. This is the first game of the last quarter of the season. All right, that's the first game of the last quarter, meaning it's the first game of that last set of 4 games. Okay, now listen, we do not have a recent history of doing well in the last quarter of the games. All right, and this game is really going to set the tone, I think, for those last 4 games. All right, in those last 4 games, and this is actually really, really important, Bucs fans, we have 3 divisional games in those 4 weeks. We've got the Saints, we've got the second game with the Panthers, and then we've actually got the Saints again. Okay, and then there's one weird team in the middle. I don't remember who it is off the top of my head. But we have 3 divisional games. And what that means is that this 4 weeks, this batch of quarters is really, especially because of the Panthers are in there, we will have already played our 2 games with Atlanta. And let's just suppose that we sweep the Falcons. I mean, how great would that be for Dirk Cutter and Mike Smith to come in and in their first year, really at the helm of the Buccaneers, sweeping the Falcons? That would just be poetic justice to me. But let's assume we've swept the Falcons, and we could even go ahead and assume that we lost that Monday night game to the Panthers. Okay, I hope that's not the case. I'm not trying to speak evil over the team, but let's just say that's it. So we come into this 2-1, and we have 3 divisional games now left. This could really make or break whether or not the Bucs are even in the playoff race, depending on what happens with this first game with the Saints. Because if we fall 3-2, at that point, could we really be out of it? I mean, it certainly is a lot harder. Or I'm sorry, if we're 2-2 at that point, right? Is that right? 2-2? Yeah, I don't know. Wait a minute. We'll do 1, 2, 3. We'll do 3 games, 2-1. So we're 2-1 coming in. Okay, yeah. Because that makes a big difference if you're 2-1 going into a game, or even coming off the Saints game, if you're 3-1 heading into your final 2 division games versus being 2-2. Okay. So that's why I think this particular game, this first game against the Saints, is going to be super important, because it sets up that last 4-week run. It sets up the meaningful football that we have, and really could be the piece that determines whether we're in the playoff race or not. So I had a few honorable mentions of other games that really popped out to me, but they didn't quite make the list. And one is an October 2nd game. It's where the Broncos come to Tampa Bay. And, it's always nice defeating the Super Bowl champs. This could happen. It really could. I'm not hating on this one because I got to tell you, the Broncos seem really kind of shaky to me at best right now. So I don't know. It'd be kind of neat to beat the Broncos. I think the October 23rd game, which is the Bucs against the 49ers, this is our first week back from the bye. That's always an important game you want to watch. But it just didn't quite make the list in order of importance for me with some of these other ones. They've got 11 games after the bye week. Bye week's a little bit early this year, so that'll be an interesting game to watch. And then another one that didn't quite make the list was the other divisional game, which is November 3rd. It's the Falcons coming to Raymond James. I'm sorry, the Buccaneer. Yeah, it's the Falcons coming to Raymond James, and this is the one. Are we going to sweep the Falcons? Are they going to sweep us? It's a divisional game, but more than that, it's a Thursday night game, which is also back in the national spotlight. You always want to win nationally televised games. You always want to win any game, but particularly the national televised games, like those just have a bit of added oomph on them. It's a color rush game, so I don't know. That'll certainly be something to watch. So. All right, guys, that is my top 5 segment, top 5 games to watch. The September 11th Bucs at the Falcons, September 25th Rams at the Bucs, October 10th Bucs at the Panthers, November 27th Seahawks at the Bucs, and December 11th Saints at the Bucs. So, hey, guys, here's what I'd love to know. What do you think? Are these the games that seem the most important to you, or are there other ones on the schedule that you think, hey, actually, I think this game is more important than one of the games you said, Brent? Well, guys, you can let me know. Shoot me an email over at thepewtercast@gmail.com, or as always, Twitter at you can tweet me at thepewtercast, or you can leave a comment on facebook.com/thepewtercast. You can actually even go to the comments section on the actual webpage for where the Pewtercast is located, and you can leave a comment there, or you can do an iTunes review. That'll work as well. Well, guys, we've got a brand new segment coming up next called Say What? Be sure to stick around. Hey, Pewtercast fans, Brent Allen here, and I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much for how you've been supporting the show. Whether you've been downloading the show or sharing it with your friends, or you've been commenting on Facebook or on Twitter, or you've sent me an email, the love and support you guys have shown for the show has been outstanding. It has been phenomenal. I've been watching the numbers. I get those reports literally every day. Anytime I pop online and I look at them. And the numbers just continue to climb. They continue to spike. They continue to just, everything's moving up and to the right. And I am so thankful for all of you guys who have really been supporting the show. And I wanted to let you guys know about a new way that you can support the show. You can support us financially, which would really help keep the lights on here, because it does cost a little bit to do this. And one way you can do that, you can leave a one-time donation over at paypal.me/thepewtercast. You can leave a little tip over there for us that'll help us, just help us kind of offset some of the cost of the fees. And hey, listen, if you are interested in becoming an official sponsor of the Pewtercast, I would love to talk to you about that. Just shoot me an email over at thepewtercast@gmail.com, put sponsorship in the subject line, and I'd love to have that conversation with you. All right, welcome back, Pewtercast fans, to our brand new segment that we have called Say What? And in this segment, what we're going to be doing is I've been listening to all the press conferences and the interviews and the videos and stuff that the players and coaches have done. And I've kind of pulled out some of my favorite lines, some of the things that they've been saying, and just wanted to talk about those a little bit as we kind of close out the show here. So let's see what we've got here. I've got a list of them here that I thought was really neat. One of the things, Gerald McCoy, he did a press conference the other day. Apparently he did it in a towel, which is just really funny to me to picture him in a towel. And he came in apologizing for for his appearance. He's like, I was in the tub, but I didn't want to not get this interview, so I ran in here in my towel. And he told somebody as he walked off the podium, he's like, somebody needs to get a mop and clean this up. But anyway, while he was in the middle of that press conference, he had said this. He said that Jameis had come to him privately and had asked him to do something. And he said, my quarterback needs me to do that. The face of the franchise came to me and said, in order to win, I need to do this. And he said, that's what I'm going to do. And he said, and when you see me doing it, it's going to be obvious. And he said, now listen, don't make that big of a deal. It's not anything super great, but it's something he said he needs me to do. And you'll know it when you see it. And that's all he said. Gerald McCoy was a little coy. A pun completely intended, and it was horrible. Don't ever do puns. But he was being a little coy about what actually was said between Jameis and himself. And I'm pretty sure, now I was not there, but I'm pretty sure that what Jameis came to him and said was, I need you to be more vocal in your leadership. Gerald McCoy has never been a vocal rah-rah, get them roused up kind of a guy. He's been more of a guy who comes in and leads by example. And that's okay. I mean, there's room for all of those different styles of leadership. But my guess is, now this is pure speculation, is that Jameis went to Gerald and said, I need you to be more rah about this. I need you to be more vocal in your leadership. And that was actually confirmed the next day. Jameis was doing a press conference, and he basically said, I asked him to lead more. I asked him to just keep doing what he does and lead more, be more of a leader. And I'm real interested to see how this progresses with Jordan McCoy. But I'll tell you what, all right, people, I'll tell you what, that right there, okay, Jameis Winston, face of a franchise, coming to a guy who was the face of the franchise, the former face of the franchise, the guy who didn't really actually want it. He just kind of handed it to him. In fact, he talked about that. He said, Rondé handed it to me, and I turned around and said, here you go, Jameis, you take it. And here's what I love. Here's what Gerald said. He said, the face of the franchise came to me and said, you need to do this in order for us to win. So I'm just going to do that. I love that. Is the kind of culture we want around Tampa Bay. That's exactly what we want to see. And I love seeing that Jameis he's calling stuff out of people. You know, he sees something more in McCoy. He sees something that I think we all actually have seen from McCoy. You know, because we want McCoy to lead. We see him. We see that he has that potential. He could be that guy. And here's Jameis really calling it out of him. And McCoy's responding. Or at least he's responding in heart. I'll be really interested to continue to watch him, to see what we can see and find out how that actually translates to the field. So really excited about that. Gerald McCoy did say one more thing. When he was in his press conference, he said he wanted to play all 13 years in Tampa. Yeah, that's what he was talking about. Warren Sapp. Warren Sapp played 13 years, so he has a goal. He wants to play for 13 years, and he really hopes it can be all 13 years. And it was kind of funny, like the look he got on his face. It's like he was kind of saying something to Jason Light and to Coach Cutter, saying, "I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stay right here in Tampa." Which, you know what? One of the things we said about this culture is we want people who want to be here. And Gerald McCoy is a great person to have here the entire time. So would love to see Gerald McCoy here. All right. Say what? Joe Hawley was up next. I mentioned this a little bit earlier on in the show, and I want to unpack it a little bit more here. He was asked about who is going to replace Logan Mankins as the leader of the offensive line. And Joe just kind of real sheepishly said, Levante David said something similar to this last year, but he said, well, everybody's a leader, everybody's just kind of, leading by example. And, we've had a lot of people here who have led by example around this team, and look where it's gotten us. And we've had a leader come in and be really vocal. And like I said, different people have different leadership styles. That's fine, but you need them both. Okay. You can't be lacking that. And, not everyone can be a leader, because if everyone is leading, no one's following. Okay. And following is not a bad thing. In fact, as a leader, one of the best things you can do is be the best follower you can to your leaders, because leaders have leaders. Right. So, but somebody, I'm really looking for who is that person on the offensive line who is going to step up and kind of be the guy who says to the offensive line, we're not letting tackles get through. We're going to open up these holes. Who's going to be that person? You remember what I remember about the most about Logan Mankins last year was, it was the game right after Quan Alexander's brother had died. And Logan, an offensive lineman, said, I want to be the guy to give the game ball to Quan. Like, he went to Coach Smith and said, I want to do that. And, man, that's just stand up. There's a reason Logan Mankins was a team captain last year. And, we need that kind of a person. Now, listen, you don't have to have a team captain on the offensive line. It's great if you can, but it doesn't have to be that guy. But there does need to be someone who's in that offensive line room who really is kind of the leader of that team. So, didn't love hearing what Hawley had to say there, but I'm just going to chalk that up to I didn't love that thing. I'd love to see somebody really step up. Doug Martin cracked me up. Doug Martin said, I'm an anime guy. Who knew? Huh. He went to Japan, and he's really into anime, apparently. I would never have pegged Doug Martin for that at all. But hey, that's just a fun little say what. I think the big guy, this is certainly the guy who gets the most time in the press conferences, and we have the most lines to talk about, is Coach Cutter. Coach Cutter said this. He's like, we've got guys that are competing for 53 spots. And that's a real sobering thought. Like, we've got 90 guys out there right now, and there's only going to be 53 spots. That's a little under half. That's a little under half of these guys are going to be gone. That's like, what, 40%, maybe 45% of these guys are going to be gone, in just a couple of weeks. And, he said, here's what I loved about that, though. Here's the context of that statement was, he said, hey, people out here look like they're getting kind of rough. Like, they're really, really stepping up and flying to the ball. And coach is like, yeah, don't forget, they may not be competing in the game right now, but they're competing against each other because there's only 53 spots. And, man, I loved hearing that. I talked a little bit about Noah Spence. He said, talk to any of our offensive line guys and they'll tell you Noah Spence is lightning off the edge. Lightning. I loved hearing that, man. We certainly need a guy like that. Noah Spence, he was my pick for number 1 draft pick, but we got him in the 2nd round. So, hey, awesome. I love that. This one happened today. So apparently Major Wright came in and just put a nasty cheap shot, wicked hit on one of our offensive guys while they were in practice today. And coach came out and he said, this is what he said. He said, we're not going to play that way. All the articles you've seen coming out of the media between yesterday and today have been talked about how the Bucs are still going to focus on penalties. We got to get our penalties cleaned up as a team, and they're absolutely right. And coach said we're not playing that way. Less than the penalty, he's like, we're just not going to have that on our team. That's not okay. And I loved hearing our coach he defined reality and he's laying down the law about penalties and about how we're gonna approach these kinds of things, how we're going to approach stupid things. We're not going to be a team that goes out and does cheap shots on people and possibly get ejected from a game and take a big 15-yard penalty and all that kind of stuff. That's just stupid. And we're not going to do that. And he's not okay with having that. He's not just kind of sloughing it off, So yeah, that Coach Cutter also had a little bit to talk about Caleb Benenoch. What he said was he was specifically talking about Caleb Benenoch, but I think this really applies to the team as a whole. This goes to show his entire thing. He was talking about how Caleb Benenoch was making mental mistakes, which really was a thing of how he just missed OTAs because of some weird rule about schools. It wasn't his fault. Wasn't his fault at all. But he said Caleb Benenoch was out there making some mental mistakes. He said, Benenoch's got some potential, but we've got to get way more than potential. They've got to get more than just potential. And I think that's true of our entire team. Our team has a lot of potential right now. We have a lot of potential, but we've got to get more than potential. We've had potential the last couple of years. We have to get potential. We have to get more than potential right now. So loved hearing that. So yeah, we had that one. What else we got? Oh yeah, I saved this one for last. This one's going back to old Gerald McCoy. He said in his press conference, somebody asked him what the hardest part about staying in shape was, and he didn't even pause. Before the question was even out of the lady's mouth who asked it, he was already in diet. This is my food. This is my diet. The hardest part about staying in shape. He said it's easier to stay in shape than it is to get in shape. And when they asked him what the hardest part of was staying in shape, my diet. Which I got to tell you, for a fat guy like me, man, it's good for my heart to know that these guys struggle with food too. Oh man, it makes them feel so, because when you sit there and you watch them, guys, you know what I'm telling you, they got the muscles and they got the abs and the chiseledness, and you're just like, wow, I could have been that, and I'm not. And to hear them say that they struggle with the same thing, man, that just made me feel good. So well, guys, that's going to wrap it up for Say What as a new segment. I really like this segment. I think we might keep this one around. We'll do this one again. Well, guys, that's going to wrap up our show for today here with the Pewtercast. It's going to wrap up episode number 6, Training Camp Mania. Guys, as always, you can please email me. I'd love to talk to you. I'm not trying to beg you for it. Email me. I'd really love to talk with you. It's thepewtercast@gmail.com. You can hit me up on Facebook and Twitter @thepewtercast. Be sure to leave us an iTunes review. Remember, we just need 15 more. That's all we need. And with the number of people that are jumping into the show even now who've never heard this, I'll say it again. If we hit to 25 I'm now switching it to the end of the preseason, to the start of the season. If we get to 25 iTunes reviews, I will add an extra show every single week for this season. It'll be an instant take show. So go over to iTunes, leave a review, and make sure you subscribe while you're there, or subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. Well, guys, before I get out of here, I just want to know one thing that I'm seeing, like as I'm kind of reading between the lines in the press conferences that I'm watching, and I'm hearing the words that the players and the coaches are saying, and I'm seeing the look in their eyes. And something that I'm seeing is I'm seeing a team that is bright. I'm seeing a team that is excited and is having fun. And guys, this is what I mean, what I've been talking about this whole offseason, about a culture, about the culture on a team. When a culture is working right, everyone is lifted. Everyone is raised up. You see, culture is contagious, and that's true whether it's a good culture or a bad culture. So listen, when you go to work tomorrow, or you find yourself in whatever situation you're in tomorrow, choose to be a person that puts out a bright, excited, fun culture. Do your job, and do your job well. And have fun while you're doing it. Be happy about it while you're doing it. You can actually choose to do that. You don't have to be miserable at your job tomorrow. And listen, when you do that, that can become contagious. And other people begin to have fun. And all of a sudden, the culture around you begins to shift. The culture around you starts to catch on. And people will join you in actually enjoying life, enjoying whatever task you're putting there. Or you're going to find people that get pissed off, and those are the people that need to go. Those are the people that need to get out. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us. Hey, listen, football's back, which means these episodes should be coming a lot more regularly, a lot more frequently. So until the next time, guys, I'd like to say, go Bucks.